Hey there, future teacher, and welcome to our test preparation course covering all of the conventions of standard English to help you get completely ready for your upcoming teacher certification exam. My name is Elliot, and I'll be your instructor today. This course is made to be a complete refresher focusing on the grammar and mechanics knowledge that you'll need in order to demonstrate your understanding for exam day. All right, so first let's go over our core objectives for this lesson. Now, by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to master the structural rules of grammar and syntax. Furthermore, you'll be able to apply standard rules for capitalization, punctuation, and how to format titles correctly. And next, you'll be able to compose and identify the four main sentence types with accuracy. We will also review orthographic patterns. Remember, orthography means spelling, including affixes and morphology, in order to help make sure that you're able to identify any errors in spelling that you might be given on your exam, and also that you can just ensure correct spelling when you are reading the text passages that you're giving, or if you have a constructed response on your teacher certification exam, you'll be ready for that too. All right, so finally, a critical skill for all upcoming teachers is the ability to detect and correct common errors in usage, mechanics, and spelling. So, all right, let's dive into our first section, grammar and syntax. Now, one more time, this is a complete refresher all about the conventions of standard English. It's a complete guide here to help you just give everything that you might see on your upcoming teacher certification exam in one place. Remember, if you're watching this, you also have access to the study guide that's down below, all about the same topic, conventions of standard English. Presents everything you need in one easy to read page. And then underneath that is a content quiz that checks your understanding of the material that's presented in this slideshow presentation, as well as the study guide. All right, so again, here is grammar and syntax, and let's get into this. All right, so the absolute foundation of any good sentence is understanding its building blocks. Think here words, phrases, and clauses, and then also how they interact is key. So let's start with verb tense. This is all about time. Your verb tense tells the reader when an action happened, and it's vital to keep consistency within a text passage. That might be just a sentence as well. All right, so let's take a look at this incorrect sentence. It reads, he walks to the store and bought milk. We have walks in the present tense and bought in the past tense, and this creates a confusing timeline for the reader. So here's the fix. He walked to the store and bought milk. Now, both verbs are consistently in the past, and therefore the meaning is clear. Excuse me, I'm kind of trying to adjust this microphone so that it is clear for you to listen to, but it doesn't look too goofy at the same time. All right, let's go on to the next slide here. It's called parts of speech. Every single word in a sentence has a job. So whether it's a noun, a verb, an adjective, and so on and so forth, knowing these roles is going to be crucial for you when you're analyzing the multiple choice questions that you receive on exam day. So the big one here is subject verb agreement, and remember this rule is simple. So singular subjects get singular verbs, and plural subjects get plural verbs. The trickiest part is not getting fooled by intervening phrases. These are words that come between the sentence and the verb. So remember, ignore them when you're checking for agreement. Up next, we have this example. The list is required items is on the counter. So our subject is singular, is the singular noun list, not the plural noun items. So we use the singular verb is. Now here's another example. The members of the choir are practicing. In this case, the subject is the plural noun, which is members, not the singular choir. So we need to use the plural verb are, and that's why this one is Correct. All right, so moving on, we have correlative conjunctions. Think of these as tag items or kind of like tag teams of the grammar world. They always work in pairs. Next up, you'll recognize them. We have some examples: either or, neither nor, both and, not only, but also. They connect equal parts of a sentence. Now, the first rule when using them is parallel structure, and this means whatever grammatical form follows the first part, the same form must follow the second part. For instance, she is skilled not only at painting but also at sculpting. We have the prepositional phrase following both parts of the conjunction, making the sentence balanced and parallel. The second rule is called proximity rule, and this is which applies to the subject-verb agreement with either or and neither nor. It's pretty simple. Think of this like the verb agrees with whichever subject is closer to it. So let's take a look at an example sentence. Here we have, neither the coach nor the players were happy. The plural subject is players, good, and closer to the verb, and it's closer to the verb, so we use the plural verb were, not was. All right, so, but what happens if we flip it here? Neither the players nor the coach was happy. Notice here how we went from were to was, and do you know why? Well, because the singular subject coach is now closer, so we use that singular verb was, not were. So, great job so far, and let's keep it going. So, up next we have capitalization and punctuation. These are the road signs of writing. First, we have the basics of capitalization rules. Remember that capitals tell us where sentences begin and call out specific important nouns. Of course, always capitalize the first word of a sentence and the pronoun I. Next up, you'll always want to capitalize proper nouns. And these are the specific names of people like Maria. We've got places like Paris and organizations like the United Nations. Here are some common examples. We have, again, Maria, Paris, United Nations. Now, when capitalizing titles of books, movies, or articles, the rule is to capitalize the big words. Think about here like nouns, verbs, and adjectives. You generally don't capitalize the small words in the middle like a, an, the, or other short prepositions. So for an example here, we have a river runs through it, and the words river runs through and it are capitalized. Now let's talk about the most versatile punctuation mark, which is the comma. First, we use commas in order to separate a series of words. And to be clear, it's best practice in academic writing to use the final comma before the and or, and this is known as the Oxford comma. So, for example, we have this sentence here that reads, we need to buy flour, sugar, and eggs. That comma after sugar makes it clear that we are talking about three distinct items. Second, we also use a comma after introductory elements. If your sentence starts with a word, phrase, or clause that comes before the main thought, put a comma after it. Like this. Let's take a look here. This reads, although the weather was cold, we went for a walk. So one more time, although the weather was cold, comma, we went for a walk, period. The comma signals the end of the intro and the start of the main clause. Third, we also use a comma when joining two independent clauses or two complete thoughts. The comma goes right before the coordinating conjunction. So again, let's take a look at a nice example. This reads, the sun was shining, but a cold wind was blowing. One more time, the sun was shining, comma, but a cold wind was blowing. We have two complete sentences joined by comma and then but. And fourth, use commas to set off non-essential elements. This is an extra information part that you could remove when reading a sentence without changing its basic meaning. All right, so in this sentence, we can have a look at an example. My uncle, comma, who is an architect, comma, lives in Denver. The phrase who is an architect is extra information about the uncle, and we could remove it, and the sentence would still make sense. So, next up, how do we format titles? This is important for your teacher certification exam in case you receive a question, and hint, hint, there's one in the quiz down below. But if you receive a question on test day that asks, for example, which of the following are all acceptable except, you're able to pick it out. So let's take a look at the next slide. All right, so remember to use italics or underlining for big standalone works. This includes books, movies, albums, and magazines. For example, The Great Gatsby and the movie Star Wars would both be in italics. All right, and on the other hand, use quotation marks for smaller works or for pieces that are part of a larger collection. This includes stories like The Telltale Heart or songs like Yesterday. All right, so now let's move on to sentence production. This is about building sentences with variety and control. So first, we have a quick review about clauses. Remember, an independent clause is a complete thought, and a dependent clause is an incomplete thought, meaning it can't stand on its own. So the basic type here is a simple sentence, and it's just one independent clause. For example, we have this sentence that reads, the airplane landed safely, and it's a single, complete thought. And next, we have a compound sentence, and this means it's made of two or more independent clauses that are joined together. So an example here would be, the storm passed, comma, but the sky remained cloudy, period. And that's two complete thoughts joined by the conjunction but. The storm passed and the sky remained cloudy. All right, so next up, we have complex sentences, and this is a type where we have one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. So for example, when the bell rang, comma, the students left the classroom, period. When the bell rang is the dependent clause, meaning it can't stand alone. And finally, the compound complex sentence. This is a hybrid with at least two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause as well. So we have this example sentence which reads, before the power was out, comma, I lit a candle, comma, and my brother read a book, period. Here we have one dependent clause at the start, followed by two independent clauses. All right, so here's a quick test tip to figure out the sentence type if you receive a question on your upcoming teacher certification exam like this. Remember that your first step should always be to find all of the subjects and the verbs, and then look for the words connecting them, and that will reveal the true structure. Now let's go ahead and tackle spelling to make sure you're totally ready for test day. All right, so accuracy is really important here, and as we know, English spelling is not always easy, and it definitely does not always follow rules. So let's talk about it. So some words in English are called simple irregular words, and these don't follow the rules, and so they're kind of hard to work with. So best way to learn them is through memorization and practice. Words like conscience, liaison, and rhythm are common examples. And next up, we have orthographic patterns. Remember, if you see the word orthographic or orthography on your exam, think spelling. These are the common spelling rules that we need to learn and also teach our upcoming or future students. So, for example, like I before E except after C. These are just helpful guides, but also be aware that there are many exceptions. All right, so for instance, if we see the rule, for example, we have believe, we have receive, but an exception pops up in the word like weird. So understanding syllables and their affixes can also be a really huge help to make sure that we, and again, make sure our future students can figure out what the words mean. So affixes are parts added to a word, whereas prefixes come before the meaning, before the beginning. So again, affixes can be a prefix or a suffix, and the prefix comes before, whereas the suffix comes at the end. For example, when we have a prefix like un to the word such as necessary, the spelling of the original word doesn't change. You just put them together, which is nice. Suffixes, on the other hand, are added to the end of a word and can change its function and also sometimes its spelling. And these are sometimes known as derivational morphology. So, for example, the verb define becomes the noun definition. Notice here how the E is dropped and then that ITION is then added. So, our final section is all about usage and error correction. And if you've stuck with me so far, I appreciate it, and I hope that you're finding a ton of value in my instruction. So knowing these rules is great. It's going to really help you on exam day. Let's dig into it. So first and foremost, let's start with sentence fragmenting or fragmentation. This is an incomplete thought that's been punctuated as if it were a full sentence. So here we have this example. I know I labeled it in red. Let's read it. Because she arrived late to the meeting, this is a dependent clause. It's leaving us hanging, right? We're left thinking, what happened because she was late? We actually need something more. It's not a complete sentence on its own. So here we have the corrected sentence. Because she arrived late to the meeting, she missed the introduction. Now, this is complete, and technically it's a complete complex sentence. So next up, we have a comma splice, and if in case it's been a while, let's go over this as a refresher too. This is a really common error, and it's when two complete sentences are joined together only with a comma. And here's an example. The presentation was informative, comma. The speaker was engaging, period. Notice that comma is not strong enough to hold those two ideas together. So the fix is easy though, and this is the type of question that you might receive on your exam about how to fix it, right? So luckily for us, it's simple. You can just replace the comma with a stronger punctuation mark like a semicolon or a period. And then of course remember that if it was a period, you would capitalize that T in the. So if it was a semicolon, simply the words stay the same. The presentation was informative, informative, semicolon. The speaker was engaging. All right, so similar to a comma splice, we have this fused or run-on sentence, and this happens when two complete sentences are smashed together and we're left with no punctuation at all. Let's take a look at a bad example. All right, so I went to the library. I studied for 3 hours. It's hard to tell where one thought ends and another begins. Again, luckily for us, the fix is simple. So let's take a look here. I went to the library, period. I studied for 3 hours, period. Much cleaner, much easier for the reader to understand. All right, that concludes our lesson all about the conventions of standard English. Make sure to go ahead and review the study guide that's right down below, and also take the quiz. It's definitely going to help you on your upcoming exam. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in future videos.